am so excited that I get to talk to you today. This is a Monday for us here. And, Mondays can be a little bit iffy in some ways, but you know what? I get to have you in my Monday. And this is already a better day. Thank you for being in it.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
You have been on a mission to make things better in general. So I know this Monday's going to get better, but this is in general in life. I can tell you've been doing so many great things when it comes to your work with sustainability and social impact. You're one of those people that I talk to, and I feel like the world's going to go in a better direction just because you're one of the people who's speaking and you're leading and you're making sure that people can understand how they can do things better. So I am so glad that you're giving a little bit of time just to be able to share your perspectives and your thoughts and hopefully inspire more people to understand what they can do. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. For your audience, this invite came in summer, and we're finally having this conversation in December. So the endless patience is paying off.
Well, no, this is... life is lifing, it's been quite a couple of months, right? It's been a few months. And you've been switching, you got a new job, you're working in Patients Earth now, is that the case?
Yeah. I feel I've been going through this major life transition right now. That's been lasting at maybe 5 or 6 years.
Well,
that's the thing with life transitions, right? They last long. It takes so much time to change.
Well, honestly, if you're not changing, then what are you doing? Things should be evolving. It should be getting better in some ways. And you should always try to keep growing and developing. And you always do that. You moved to Finland like 5 or 6 years ago, no?
Yeah. I moved to Finland 6 years, September, October, November, and 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious though, because you came to Finland. Actually, I'm not quite certain what brought you here originally.
Yeah. I think about that a lot, actually. And depending on who is asking me this and when they're asking me this, I answer different things.
Okay.
So I think with an immigration journey, usually you have the factors that are kind of incentivizing you to leave your place of origin, and then you have the factors that are attracting you to a certain place. So very often it's not just one thing that is motivating you. When I think of the factors that were making me feel like I want to get out of Brazil was I wanted to do a master's. That back at this point, I wanted to have an academic career. Mm-hmm. And the government was changing, since we were talking about change and transitions. Mm-hmm. And the new government was cutting a lot of the scholarships, was cutting on funding for education and universities and all of that. And I thought I cannot afford to do a master's or to continue studying and doing my education without this kind of support. So if I wanted to do an academic career, it had to be somewhere different. Nowadays, I also see that I have also this kind of like running away kind of like a psychological need or desire to get away a little bit from my bubble and to experience life outside of my family circles and outside of my friendship circles and see what type of person I would become as a result of this. And I felt like I needed to go far. Finland is very far from Brazil. Nowadays I think, wow, it's so difficult to visit. I could have picked somewhere closer. And then there was also this general insecurity with social activism and environmental activism, with the freedom of speaking being reduced, and not only in terms of like we have police or we have government kind of controlling what you're saying, but I realized that there were a lot of changes in friendship circles, in my family members, and I was thinking, these are the people that are gonna turn against me, and it's scary when they are not being controlled by a government force, but by your peers. And then I was feeling very insecure and unsafe in general. So this was I see this as the factors that were incentivizing me to not want to be there. And then when it comes to why Finland, I was very attracted by the Nordics in general, with this idea of the entire idea of safety, women's rights, gender equality, this kind of like idea of like I can walk and be by myself. I don't need to ask for a man for protection.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to carry like the fake phone, fake wallet, this kind of thing.
Exactly. Funny story. I always had a fake phone. And one day I was going to my friend's party. This happened in Brazil. Of course, the fake phone is the invitation of it. And then there was a dog that was like the cutest dog ever. And then I stopped. And then I was thinking like I should not like do anything because it's at night, it's dangerous. But the dog was so cute. And I was like, I have to take a picture. So I took my real phone and took a picture. And this exact moment, someone came to rob me. So I couldn't even pretend that my fake phone was my real phone. I was like,
I'm so sorry.
Damn dog.
You know, I wonder if the
I
dog was in on it, you know?
Second. I even had the fake phone with me.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yes. But you know, it was a cute dog. I mean,
Was it worth it? I mean,
it wasn't worth it, a new phone. It wasn't. I need to be honest with you. But then at this point, I was already dating a Finnish boyfriend, so it felt like a safe kind of. At the same time that I was seeking safety, maybe. I was like, there is this person, and then I will have help, and they know already about the culture. They can help me. And then Tampere University was offering a scholarship that also covered living expenses.
Wow, great.
Yes.
That's quite the win.
So like the stars aligned, and that's how I ended up here. That was a long story.
It's a good one, though, because it ends up with you here. I was actually just thinking a couple of things. One, about the safety and security thing. That's a massive thing. I was walking home like maybe a day or two ago, and I remember thinking how normally, I'm from Detroit, by the way, and normally you might have like your keys between your fingers and such, and, you know, just in case, you know, if something happens and such. And I distinctly recall, like, you know, I'm walking and I had my keys in my hands. Like, I actually need to have my keys in my hand, you know, just in case and such, because this is not that kind of place. And I've never actually had an issue with that. But it's a thing where I really do appreciate that safety. But I also realize you hear about the country before you get there, you know, and there are some things that you realize are kind of just branding, you know, and that's perfectly fine. Every country has their national brand in terms of like how they put out their image and what's, you know, an amazing place to be. I'm actually curious for you, what turned out to be something that might have been more national PR versus reality when you came here.
I can do a monologue about this question only. I think one of the factors is this idea that everyone is equal and is provided with equal opportunity. So I had this fantasy, and I still have this fantasy sometimes, that people are going to treat you equally and you're going to be heard equally and in equal terms. And then I come with all these ideas and I have this background and I feel like I have all this knowledge and expertise and I want to show things to Finnish society, and then I feel like closed doors, closed windows of opportunities and things like this. And then I'm like, well, as it turns out, not everyone has equal opportunity, and even the safety issue is not the same for everyone. And then there is also this narrative that like Finns are not going to be racist on the street. They are not going to scream things at you, and this is not true. You know, this is simply not true, and this creates unsafety and this creates insecurity as well. And then another thing that for me was also shocking was that this the gender equality aspect as well, and learning all about the research and about how there is so much disparity on positions of power and leadership and gender violence at home and how many things they happen in the private space. So one good aspect of Finnish culture is that there is this private-public divide, which can be very good sometimes when you just want to be in your own world and you want to be like, I want to be protected and I don't want my life to be judged in the public sphere. But this can be very bad if we are talking about violence. And this can be really terrible if we are talking about other sorts of problems that are happening at home. So I think these were some of the shocks to me on Finnish life. Then another aspect is that there is a lot of the branding around nature and around how nature is important to Finns and to Finnish people. And this is true. I became a way more outdoorsy person since I moved here, and I have way more accessibility to nature. But at the same time, when you are talking about environmental narratives and environmental justice and narratives of climate change, it's very difficult to penetrate Finnish minds. Because it's a problem from other parts of the world. We are just a small country. It's not going to affect us that much. it's gonna be fine, or we don't do harm on the environment. And this is not true, because Finns do a lot of harm through overconsumption, and through many other ways, and in other countries as well. So these were also some of the difficulties that I had with the branding and the reality.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting about this whole concept of like a lot of the environmental problems being perceived as somebody else's problems in that sense. I I find that to be kind of more of a universal thing. I think every country
Yeah.
I've lived in, everybody thinks it's
Yeah,
someone
maybe
else's
maybe it
problem.
is. Yes. But I think like the difference is that because there is such a strong narrative here about how Finns are connected to nature,
Mm,
that it's very difficult for the recognition of the problem.
yeah.
Um, because the other way around is, but we already do very well with nature.
Mm,
Our country is covered in forests. So what do we do? What do we need to do differently? We're already doing great. And this is the difficulty, I feel, with talking about environmental narratives. And also because it's very separate, environmental from social
mm.
solutions. And it's difficult to bring them together.
Though I would say I'm encouraged a bit more in this place where people can talk about these things, and it even if it's something where it's not the national narrative of everyone engaging in that conversation, it's not necessarily discouraged per se. So
Yeah.
I do think I appreciate that considerably. I'm going back to the States this week for the holidays, and it's a whole different ballgame when it comes to like your relationship with the environment. You buy your stuff, which is wrapped in plastic, and packaged in a an Amazon box, and you don't really think about how all these things get to your doorstep, or the effect of your actions and your choices on the world that we live in. And I think I I haven't come across a place in this world yet where I think it's such a major part of how we think about, our lives, the impacts of our actions and our choices. Um, Here, maybe a bit more so than other places, certainly, but definitely not where I'm from, to be honest tonight.
Yeah, I think I've been having. Well, I will first ask my question, and then I'll share a reflection about this. But I was wondering how you feel you're moving to Finland, or basically moving your life to here felt different compared to when you did this to other countries.
Honestly, somebody once told me that Finland is full of space, right? Um, it is the kind of place where you can fill it up with whatever you want to, but it's open space in many ways, like geographically, and then also in terms of a lot of um, just the realities that you have here. There's a lot of possibility. There's a lot of choice in terms of how you live your life and what you want to do with it here. And that was what I was told. And I think to some degree, it's actually, often true in many ways. I moved here from Germany directly, and in Germany, there's so much bureaucracy. There's so much bureaucracy. There are loads of red lights, on everything in terms of like, you know, if you want to process, if you want to file something, it's going to take you like loads of pieces of paper, a lawyer, an accountant, and all these kind of things and such. And that is the nature of life there. And in Finland, things are very streamlined because you have fewer people. So it can, the system it functions a lot more smoothly. And I saw this as a place where, there's a lot of possibility in many ways. You don't have the artificial boundaries and barriers like that. Um, when it comes to things, though, it is what you build, I find. So it's not necessarily the land of opportunity in the sense of, yay, opportunity is here, and they're going to present it to you. It's more like, it may not be 1,000 open doors, but in many cases, there's lots of wood and you can build a door, for yourself. I think that's kind of more my impression of Finland versus other places, perhaps, that I've lived in. In the States, it's definitely, it always feels more like a gamified situation. You can technically get ahead. This is what people feel like, the idea that they're sold. but you have to make certain, this bad thing doesn't happen and that bad thing doesn't happen. And then, watch out for this kind of thing. And you have to be really smart, make certain you get the right choice and you do the right thing. And then maybe you'll win at life kind of situation.
Maybe.
Now maybe you would, or you can
Sacrifice
lose
everything and maybe, perhaps.
you know, but then I know so many folks in my life who also got to be relatively comfortable and they had a medical emergency and they ended up going bankrupt because they lost it all. They were underinsured or, something wasn't covered and this kind of thing. And then next thing you know, you might be homeless. And so like it's a weird kind of gambling mentality to life, that I, am not so particularly aligned with personally. It's like, hey, you can get a great education, but you might get shot. So, these are things like, little things you have to worry about, and such. So I appreciate the safety here, and I definitely think that Finland has that. And there's a lot of less stress around certain topics. Like, for instance, like if you want to have a kid here, I think that is it is still probably like the one of the best places that you could just decide to have a family. That process in terms of like going to the doctor and that's just like their advisor that they have here, and you can get checkups like they have them scheduled automatically for you, and you get to go in there. Like
you don't even need to do the mental work of scheduling.
I know, no, seriously, they're like, of course, you come in, and they have a whole plan for you, and they check up on you like quite regularly, like every couple of weeks, every week into it, depending on towards the end and such. And the medication's
adult
fine.
Life is realizing how great is when someone does a plan for your well-being.
Oh my gosh, they, mind you, after you have the child, you become keenly aware it's not about you as a parent. It's actually about the baby that they cared about the whole time. But still, it made you feel like you matter in that sense, And it's something where there are certain situations like this which I think are stress free, or limited stress that you can appreciate. But then you also have to think about it's also a very small society, like population wise, and that breeds a certain level of protectionism and xenophobia sometimes, where if you are not from here, or if you look a little bit different or you sound a bit different, etc., that's going to be something that's going to stick out and people are going to notice, and that's going to affect a lot of things in terms of how you live. And those are actual realities that you become aware of when you're here. So there's no perfect place in the world. There is no perfect place in the world. But I would say you think about the kinds of stresses that you have in life. You think about the places in the world that can mitigate or reduce those stress for that particular phase of life that you're in. And you choose a location that's good for you at that time. And I think for Finland, if you are a person who has a steady job already, and or if you are looking to start a family, then it can make sense. But it's not for everybody at all times, but it can be a good point in time for a lot of people at certain points.
Something that I was thinking that when you were talking about all these things is that the context in Finland is an invitation to softness. I feel here all the time I'm taught that I do not be so hard, that I do not need so much protection all the time, like my own individual protection. So you were saying, great, you can have a great career, you can get tons of money, but then you risk getting shot. And all these things, they teach us and teach our bodies to create a layer of protection and a layer of hardness, a layer of distrust on other people. So I remember this one moment that I felt like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore in this country, was when I was with my dad in front of a hospital. I was sick or something, and then I came back from an appointment, and this guy came to us and he wanted to say something, and then my dad said, like, be careful, he may rob us, and like, don't talk to him. And then I was just feeling like my humanity is shattered when I cannot just talk to someone as a human. It's so dehumanizing to other people, and that you have to have your barriers high all the time because someone may do something to you. And the guy heard and said, like, I'm not gonna rob you.
Yeah.
like relax. This is not gonna happen. And in fact, sometimes they do say that right before they rob you, exactly to get yourself
Get
a
your
bit more
guard down.
comfortable and relaxed. Yes, and
Yeah.
then they rob you. But this
And
guy
that's how
did
your
that.
phone got taken, you know? Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think I just wanted to know the time or something.
Hmm.
Um, but like I also feel like I want to be a soft person. This is who I am.
Exactly.
I'm a softie. I want to trust other people. I want to see people as humans. I want to treat them as humans. I want to be treated as a human. I want to
Hmm.
be open to the world. I don't want to be walking on the streets with the shoulders up high. I want to be able to experience softness. And I feel Finland
Yes.
is a country that allows you to do this because you don't need to be so worried about things all the time and protection.
Hmm.
Maybe in winter it's a bit harder because it's so slippery to
Hmm.
walk and I get a bit tense.
I feel
But
you now.
in general, but this is a problem of the grounds and not a problem of people.
But you're
um,
exactly right. Um, I 100% concur with that. And here's a thought I would even add to it. Recently, I was actually just having a conversation with a friend of mine about like life choices in terms of like, you know, what kind of work do you want to have? What career do you want to apply your time, your energy towards? And, this person was like, I love my job, but it makes me be a person that I don't like to be for 8 hours a day. And then it occurred to me, I was like, that's half of your waking life. You're spending your time making choices to be a person that you don't want to be. The situations that you put yourself in, the context professionally and even geographically, insofar as one can have a choice for these things, they shape who you are. And, the choice to stay in those things, those are the choices as to who you are as a person, who you're going to be and how you're going to exist in this world. And I hope more people, when they get that chance or opportunity, they can choose to be that person they want to be, put themselves in the context that's going to shape them into that kind of person. Because, you can be in Finland and yes, you can be a softer person. That's a beautiful thing. You could be in a career where you can, demonstrate the best parts of your personality and the best parts of your skills, if you can. But the choices that you make about how you spend your time and where you spend your time, those shape who you are as a person. And I think that's something that, you know, you cannot overlook. Every day is a choice. Every day is a choice. And I love that you've chosen to be a soft person. I love that you've chosen to allow yourself to, to be able to show the parts of yourself that you want to be.
No, I think the real challenge is how you make these choices when you don't want to move your entire life to a new
No, I mean,
country or when you don't want to change jobs because we were talking about change, right, at the beginning of
mm-hmm,
this conversation and transitions.
mm-hmm,
And change is great, but it's also a lot of work and it's also a lot of emotional energy. It's a lot of financial resources that are being put into these changes. And I also have the respect for people that don't want to change jobs or that don't want to move countries or that don't want to move things when things are not exactly who they want to be. And but then how do we take back this agency
mm-hmm,
so we are who we want to be in the current circumstances that we have? Because for me, it's also way easier to do this change when I'm 20 something, no kids,
mm-hmm.
just by myself. The only person I have to answer to is myself. Then I can just go.
I miss
No,
those
no,
days.
no family members who need me in that health sense or anything
Hi,
like that.
so
I just have myself to. I can just do things.
that
But
sounds so wonderful. It sounds like you actually probably have the luxury of getting this full night's sleep every night or something like that. That sounds beautiful. This is the 20.
yeah, yeah, and yet sometimes I don't sleep so well. So what's happening?
No, I mean,
But like the question is like, how do we get back this agency, even when it feels like we don't have it because we are constrained by um, financial aspects, by the responsibility of caring for others, and I think that a lot of my work goes exactly on this direction to show it's a climate crisis. There is xenophobia. There is racism. There are all these things, but yet you are human. Yet you deserve joy. Yet you deserve to be like a full human. How are you gonna do things and choices and have your agency like intact in these very difficult circumstances. And I think this is a real big challenge.
What you said is a key factor for a lot of people right now. I mean, I think a lot of folks I know they are a bit jaded when it comes to like all the things that are happening in the world. Like the climate thing is one thing, but then you think about the political situations, you think about all the things happening in the world, and you feel like there's nothing much that you can do. Um, Oftentimes it can feel like you're just, you're out there in a small boat in a big storm, and how do you weather all these things? So I am not saying that everybody has the ability to like just leave their country and go and study at university in some other place. And, that's a lovely luxury that I'm really, really happy that you had, and I'm glad you took. But there are a few things that one can change, I would say. If you can't change your location, right, you can sometimes, in some ways, change your behavior. You can change your perception of things. You can change the people that you're interacting with to, expand your circles in some ways. Can you change what you're doing? Can you change how you're doing it? There's usually something that you can adjust in your life to make, not just the feeling of things being better, but the reality of it being better as well. I love to make sure that people understand that even when it feels like there's nothing you can do, there's always something. You're never quite stuck, When it comes to like the environmental things, people can get overwhelmed with that. I know a lot of folks can get climate anxiety and such. How do you approach that? How do you make certain people can feel their agency and their hope in that? What's something that you say that anybody can do?
Something that I was thinking a lot about during this conversation as well was a concept that you shared with me a while ago when we were talking about how this is scarcity, growing up in a scarce background where you were always struggling for money can create a trauma where you are taking the decisions in your adult life as if you were still in this scarce kind of background.
Yeah.
And then I was chatting with you, like, I would love someday to take decisions from a point of view of abundance. And then you said it's even better if we have the mindset of possibilities, so that we take decisions not only based on scarcity, not only based on abundance, because abundance is also not completely a given, but instead we think of what are the possible pathways and what are the possible futures that we can have and how we take decisions based on that. And I think this is very useful for environmental action and environmental work as well, because you can think even in terms of how much bandwidth you have in your life to do environmental work. It can be scarce, but if you think about possibilities and about potentials and potentialities, it can be easier to direct this energy. So with climate anxiety, my climate anxiety tells me everything is going to go to flames. Things are not going to work out. And if I would be going to abundance, I would think everything is fine. Humans are great. We can do solutions. We have had worse in the lives and people are doing incredible things and creative things in war zones and whatever. This is not good either. This is a romantic fantasy. Probably what we're gonna have is the kind of like middle type of result where we have some bad things, but then some also great things, and then we are gonna kind of like balance different possibilities. And I think this is a great answer to climate anxiety, because first, you're not seeking for perfection. You're not seeking for perfected pathways. You're not seeking for perfected solutions. You don't just put blindfold on others, because I also think this is not good. But then you are able to construct and slowly create a sense of self in this crisis. So I think this could be a good way. So something from you that can that is said like maybe 2 or 3 to me. I know I'm bringing back.
I love this. I like that. I have no idea the context in which that was mentioned, but it's kind of funny that like it applies in your life, and you can make it something that adds more value in terms of that perspective that you're adding to it. I love the possibility mindset. That's something I know has definitely been like one of my favorite considerations in this world, is that life is full of possibilities. And one thing that I realized though with possibilities there is this idea inherent to it of agency, right? So something could happen, sure, but you have the ability to make something more likely to happen than not, and you can affect on an outcome. That's something where I think that does kind of put a bit of responsibility on the person to try, and puts a lot of responsibility on the person to try to figure out what the best way of approaching things are and to try to do better. It's going to be iterative. It's never going to be perfect, right? There's never
Yeah.
going to be this time where you're like, hey, we have done this. This is good, good to go, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I think there's always going to be this idea of, you keep trying, you keep learning, and you find a better possibility that you keep aiming for. And I think that's something that you have to keep working for in your life. But for you, I mean, you've been going through your process of change for see, I don't know how long I've known you, but ever since I've known you in that time period, you've definitely been going through this evolution of change and building out better possibilities for yourself. I'm kind of curious, like, what's the possibility you're working for right now? Like, what's the positive outcome that you're currently putting your energy towards?
Um, do you mean what I'm envisioning for the future or what happened as a result of these changes?
Oh,
What I'm envisioning is to solidify myself as an educator. So this is something that I love having conversations with people because they always help me think. These conversations we had many years ago since the very first introduction, and I'm still thinking about them. And the conversation that I also had with a podcaster, uh, that he was mentioning, don't see yourself as an influencer. See yourself as an educator because
ooh,
education builds agency, and education also builds agency in that sense that I may share knowledge, I may help you, but in the end, it's your decision on what you're going to do with this knowledge. And it's unpredictable, and I have no control what's going to happen. So you're kind of like losing the grip a little bit. So what I see as a possibility is solidifying this role, in that sense that through the education, I hope to bring more money to climate and to environmental space in general, but also that I bring more people so that I'm also bringing people through their hearts and passion and to say like, come to this side,
well,
come and be with us. I swear it's not dreadful, even though it feels like it sometimes. It's
I
beautiful, and you don't have to be like a climate person or environmental person. So I feel a big chunk of my efforts is to show you can be your normal self with whatever you're working, whatever your passion is. So this is what I'm solidifying right now, the education.
you know what I love? I love when people who are trying to make the world better, they think about this as integrating into everyday things, right? So when people think of like climate as a separate topic, then it becomes overwhelming and daunting, and it's not something anybody can fix because it's that big thing out there. But when you think about the big problems as something that you have a little part of, when you can think about how this interacts with your everyday actions, your everyday choices, then that makes it more doable, makes it more manageable. It's something where you can feel like, I've accomplished something, and now I can accomplish something more. Like it makes progress possible. And I love when that happens because you get the same thing for like DEI and such. We talk about, hey, we want an inclusive society. And then people are like, all right, cool. We'll let those DEI people do it. That's not exactly how that works, right? It has to be something that everybody does. And it has to be something that everybody can see themselves in and they can actually understand how they can own it and how they can be able to progress and do something with this. So when we have those big topics, like when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about, inclusion, we talk about social justice, we talk about any of these kind of things, when you can break it down to what a person can do. So what can an individual do, in their everyday lives? Because there are different layers to it. There are the individual choices, there are communal choices, there are societal choices, right? But they're the individual choice that can influence then what the community does. And what the community does can influences what society does and what they vote for and things that happen from there. But that starts from that individual. And that's something I love to see, that seeding of hope that happens, the seeding of possibility and agency at that individual level to make change happen.
Yeah, this is actually my question for you. I love that you bring this up because I really wanted to talk to you about this because I feel navigating climate denial or the space of criticism to environmental action is easier for me because somehow I feel a little bit removed. I feel like I can create some sort of personal separation. So when I see, I don't know, Elon Musk saying it's fine or Trump saying it's fine, I'm able to not get personally offended about it. But when it comes to the DEI space, all the discussions affect me really deeply personally. When I see this huge ideological wars happening, and when you see it's basically what I see is that there has been a huge backlash against DEI and against much of the progress we've done in the public narratives around the importance of inclusion and diversity and all of that. So my question for you is, how do you navigate it? How do you communicate about it? How do you, yes. So how do you navigate these challenges? So first, in that sense of, are you able to create this personal separation when you see this backlash to not get personally affected, if it's possible? And then secondly, what strategies have you used?
What I start to do in general, I wonder, whenever people have an emotional response to something, you have to consider what are they emotionally responding to, right? And it's very seldom the thing that is spoken or the thing that's said. So if somebody is like vehemently against something or opposed to it, and you're like, hey, I just said a word, and they're and they might be feeling triggered about something. Well, an important thing to consider is, what are they really reacting to? That's the first thing. Almost certainly it may not be, me personally, it could be what I represent. It may not be DEI as such. It's what they think it represents. So the question is, what do they think it represents? I remember I took this one job once, and I had the senior executive say to me there, I'm really surprised that we hired for a DEI role. Actually, I was kind of fighting against it. I think DEI is a bunch of BS, right? And that was my welcome to the company. But
Wow.
Yeah. You know what, though? What I realized, through the conversation was, what does he mean by that? What do you mean by DI firstly? And they're like, oh, it's a bunch of corporate BS and such, it's just this thing that you have to do because da, da, da. And then I realized, okay, so we're talking about different things. I'm talking about, making certain that we're doing right by people. I want to make certain that we are being fair. I want to make certain that everybody has a good shot to succeed in this company and to be able to grow here. I'm talking about making certain that we have the different kinds of people that we need, that this can actually work. This whole big vision that we have can actually fly. And nothing in that is something that anybody that's opposed to DEI usually, is opposed to. No one's like, oh, actually, I was hoping we'd be an unfair company. No one's really actually like that, right? But you kind of have to understand, what is it that they're fighting against. And for him, it's fighting against this feeling of being bogged down in unnecessary bureaucracy, being bogged down in like stuff that doesn't matter to their job and such, which means he didn't think that it was something relevant to their job. So having to understand that actually this is something that you have to think about. If you're a team lead, do you have the right people on your team to be able to accomplish the tasks and the goals that you're trying to accomplish? Are you giving these people what they need to succeed? Are you making certain that we have a good system and structures and processes and practices to make certain that we can all do the thing that we're here to do? And when you put it in those terms, it makes it so much easier for people to be able to understand how it relates to them. It's not something that's, that they're so opposed to. But then you also have to think about, what are the other feelings involved? There are other folks who feel that they're attacked by these things, right? They feel like, this is a thing that's talking about focusing on those folks, and I'm not one of those people and such. Well, that means that we've done a really bad job of, making certain that it's clear we're trying to make sure that everybody can thrive. And so I'm sorry that you didn't feel that you were involved in this, or that you had a role in this. No one's trying to take something away from you. We're just trying to make certain that everybody else can do well too, I think that can be a learning for us too, to understand, so what can we do to make certain that we've actually effectively communicated what we're trying to do, and that we've actually effectively, reached people where they are. So we can get so caught up in our words, and we love our words and we love our acronyms and our letters and things like this, you know. But if we miss the message in all our little alphabet soups of acronyms and things like this, then we've missed the people, and we're here to serve the people. So I think we've kind of missed the mark in that case. So I want to say, like, anytime you have an emotion's a good time to learn, and to question and to figure out what it is that we're actually here for. What exactly are we doing? What are people receiving things as? What's that miscommunication? What's that misunderstanding? And if we're not doing something right, then we can get it and make it better. But it's a good chance to learn. It's a good chance to grow, and it's a good chance to make certain that we're actually reaching the people that we're trying to reach.
And something that when you were talking about this, when you were saying the alphabet that we love our words. It also creates belonging within a certain group. So it can also be very tempting for us in the DI sector, the environmental sector, to just keep among ourselves and to have this feeling of this is the group of people that we share connections with, and we are connected through our care for inclusion and social justice, our environmental justice, and to not expand it, and to keep using these words and to keep using this language that just ourselves understand. So this is something that I have felt going in some DEI spaces, and I've been to an environmental conference this autumn, and I was feeling like everyone here is just the sustainability people from the companies. I feel like it's claustrophobic feeling when you feel like we are all the same.
No, seriously.
We're kind of like the same. I just want to talk to people that are different than me. And the language that we use to talk with our sames, it's not going to resonate with the people outside of the samey bubbles.
No, I think this is the thing. I mean, there's a space for us to be able to have, in the same way that we have like ERGs or little community groups and such that help people to feel supported for their unique needs. I think that's an important thing. But that's not where the work is done, That's not where the bulk of what we're trying to accomplish is, right? I think some of the best, DEI folks I know have been internal comms people. They've been COOs. They've been CFOs. I've seen some really great HR people in various capacities. I've seen recruitment folks be wonderful people who are doing this, team leads of any type. I've seen folks who just happen to be really good at making people feel warm and welcome, in their organization without any kind of title, level, or, those folks are doing a fantastic job with DEI in many ways, without the titles, not the letterings and such, because what they're doing is they're making space for different people. They're maintaining space. They're helping to change processes and practices. They're making certain that they're building out a culture where everybody can grow and thrive and, can do what they want to do there in that professional context, And I think that's something where if we can do that, and we can use whatever words we need, whatever department we're in, and we can use, whatever terms and such, if we can try to figure out how we can do right by more people, then however we're going to frame it and however we're going to shape it, whatever words we're going to use, great. But it's like in the same way that, I speak different languages. I can use whatever word it is, but the concept, that's the most important thing. We can translate it however we need to translate. Don't get so caught up on that particular translation of the thing. Make certain we're going for that thing, okay? And that's what I'd love to see us do, a bit more in our lives.
Yeah. And what do you see your role in all of this in the future?
Well, wait. That's always an interesting thing. I'm a person who I evolve quite a bit. Like, my question's always going to be that question of how can we do better for more people? That's always going to be the question I'm going to try to answer. So in that sense, I'll always be doing something with DEI, possibly because that's the question that guides me. Yet and still, like, how I've applied it in my life, I've been a comms director, I've been a CMO, I've been, an educator, I've been a researcher. There are all these different ways that I can approach these things about how to, help people to do better for more people, right? Um, and I'm not necessarily attached to any particular mode over another. I think there's so many different values and different ways to approach a problem. Um, but the goal is that I want to keep growing in whichever way that, that I apply my skills. And I want to keep, making certain I add new skills in there. And I want to make certain that I can try to make sure we could always mark and measure progress. That's a big thing, So I'm always going to have something a little bit quantitative in there as well. But part of the reason why I did the series, for instance, is because I wanted to make sure that we don't miss out on certain things. Like right now in my life professionally, I maybe lean more towards the quantitative side of things. I don't have a lot of that interpersonal interaction that helps to spark the change in some ways. I just kind of more or less do a lot of the audits and the strategy work and these kind of things. So it may not be as much of like the interactional aspects of it for a lot of the different parts that I'm doing right now. But I think a lot of change happens at that emotional level, and it happens at that interpersonal level, and it happens when you listen to a person, when you care about what they have to say, when you make certain you ask a good question that makes them think in a certain way, when you get a chance to know that and share that you care. I think that's something that does so much more than just having, a lecture or workshop and things like this. And I've seen more people actually reevaluate their behavior and, their actions through having personalized care, towards them, I think. That I want to make certain that whatever I do, I always have that aspect of it. So whether or not it's going to be something like this, where I have conversations or just talking to random strangers in the street here and there, but making certain that I always spend more time listening to people, getting to try to hopefully learn something from them and learn something with them, in this world that we're in.
I love this idea of personalized care. I feel this is what we need. We need like to receive care as people.
This is true. I mean, I was walking on the street. Actually, I got out of this one meeting and I was going to head to the next one. This one person stopped me on the street and he had something slightly racist to say. I mean, he was like, "Hey, you know what? I just saw these African people over there. Like, they threw some trash in the ground. And why do you people do that?" And he came in thinking that he's like, this is what these, you people will do and such, and you make a place worse and da 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 and that kind of stuff. And I had a conversation with this man, and through listening to him and trying to get a chance to understand where he's coming from, and and showing that I think that's not a great thing to do either, etc. He got to say, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe they were just having a bad day too," or something like that, and he could just kind of write it off in some ways. No, so it's not like a thing where it's like a certain group of people doing these things,
like
more
not us versus them.
Exactly.
Something happened with these people that they did this.
Yeah, like it's, people have off moments and bad moments and such and things like this, and that's not, that's unfortunate. But give people a little grace and let's see what we can do, and he ended up having a better moment and having a better day, and hopefully, kind of thinking, it's not necessarily an us and them situation, but it took having a conversation, and it took getting a chance to have that chat with somebody. And I think that's an important thing that I want to make certain that for me, when I have the bandwidth, to share the time when I can, But
it's great that you add this when you have the bandwidth. So
exactly.
It's not something that you would expect from yourself all the time.
No. I mean, like
that you also give yourself the grace to be like, no.
Exactly.
I will not get into this conversation today.
I also am thoroughly of this mindset that, you can't save everybody, and you could try to do what you can do when you can do it. But in the same way we talk about climate things, we talk about, all these different kind of challenges in the world. We can't necessarily, do everything ourselves. This is not a one person job, right? So when you have the bandwidth, and as you have the bandwidth, do what you can do. But understand that it's not just your problem. It's all of us together who have to do something.
I'm connecting this to the other question of the anxiety and feeling overwhelmed by so many things that you don't have control of. Something that I use a lot is I use data to show how problems are being caused by other people that we don't have control of. So I bring this data on emissions, and I bring data on who is causing more harm. And usually this decreases the anxiety levels a lot, because many people like myself tend to take responsibility over things that they don't have any. So for example, you were just saying, I can have this nice conversation, but also I'm not responsible for saving everyone. And I think when you are working with making things better, or making things better for other people, very easily you can start feeling responsible for the actions of others. So showing data that, for example, I think it was in 2019 that 50% of all the emissions were caused by the 1% richest in the world. Maybe maybe I'm doing misinformation, but the data was very sobering. It's then you start feeling weight, like the piece of meat that I eat once a week, even though I'm a vegetarian, doesn't feel that heavy anymore on the shoulders of people when they see this piece of data and they realize that these crises are also being caused by factors outside of our control sometimes, and we don't have to take responsibility for them.
This reminds me of my daughter. This morning, we're getting ready to go to the States, right, for the holidays, and she said she was worried about the plane, and I was like, why? She's like, well, what if it falls, and such. And my thought is, it's interesting. So she's worried about this because she's going to get into a plane. It's something she can do, right? For me, I get into a plane and I'm at ease because there's something I can do in that sense. So it's a very interesting, because what can I do?
Control, take everything.
It's something where I realize there's nothing I can do. So you may as well just enjoy, or you may as well, I'm not saying, we should do anything to make it fall, but the idea is you can just enjoy it and make it a pleasant flight, make it something that we're all going to, have a good moment for, because that's the best you can do. And I think at a certain point, you have to scope out and consider what is the best you can do, and, think about working within those boundaries. I think, agency is a fun thing that it's a double-edged sword, right? We want to make sure people know they can do something, but it's not always in everything, But to say that if you're trying, then I'm happy to see you're trying. If you're doing your best, I'm happy to see you do your best. And maybe someday we'll have capacity to do more. In the meantime, know that, there are people like you out there who set a good example, and we can just try to encourage each other along the way. And I think that's something too,
Yeah, and while we do this, we can do it with joy also. And doing things that will make us joyful in the present moment. So working with DEI, working with climate, working with making things better for people, it's joyful as a process. So it doesn't, I think, I don't remember which conversation it was that you had with other people that you said this. I don't like this idea of pursuit of happiness. To be on the constant pursuit of happiness. It's the now. Now is the happiness. This is what we are building in the present moment.
I think that's a big thing to consider. So that's the American side of me, the pursuit of happiness idea. But make certain that it's not always chasing something, but you can actually hold on to something in the meantime. And I hold on to these moments, having conversations with people like you, Raysa, because you add joy and you definitely add perspective. And I remember the first time I got a chance to work with you, in some ways, you were working with Youth for Nature, and you inspired me. And to see that group of people who were, they came together and they're like, hey, we're going to affect the world and we're going to make it better. We're going to be the leaders of today, not just leaders of tomorrow and such. And I saw, a bunch of younger folks doing things from around the world, and you kept trying to figure out how you can do better, how we can include more people, how can we make certain that everybody has a voice and that we are being, a space where other folks, all kinds of people can belong and feel they can contribute. And I remember listening to this and I was so inspired because I've worked with so many different companies and organizations, and that one had such a heart. I don't think I've ever seen an organization that had such a heart to do better, to try to figure out how can we not just through our mission of existing and what you're trying to do, for the environment and such and sustainability, but then also think about like, how can you do better for the people there? That inspired me. And that was something I was like, I love this. And I wish more people would have more young folks leading in that sense. I wish more people would have that goal of constant improvement, that goal of inclusion, because folks like you do that, you make it better and you make the world better. And so, yes, anytime I get to see people like you, I am happy to just sit back in awe of the things you do. So thank you for sharing your aura and sharing your energy and, what you do here.
Thanks to you, I feel like I could have this conversation for hours and hours.
I wish I could, but unfortunately I do have to get going. But my dear, thanks. What's the best way to be able to support you? And what's the best way to be able to follow what you're up to?
So the best way, if you know any organizations or companies that want to do more for climate, you can refer them my way. So at work, what we do is that we help fund the climate and nature space with philanthropy. Mm-hmm. So with donations, and if the organization just wants to do something, we can definitely help and amplify my work as well. So make the message spread. This message of joyful community-based climate action is what I'm really uplifting and what I'm really doing through my education work. So the amplification of the message is very necessary for an optimistic, grounded climate action. And of course, if I'm a very open person, so if you just want to contact me for conversations and if you have any ideas or things you would like to do together, I'm very open for common projects.
I recommend it.
And things like that.
I recommend it. Heisa is awesome. Thank you for, I don't know, was it a LinkedIn message I sent like years ago? Is that how we met at some point? I first connected? I don't know what that was.
I think it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I moved to Finland, and then 6 months later, COVID-19 started. And then a few months later, I met you. So you've been at the very beginning of my journey.
Well, I'm so grateful to be able to see and to witness all the things you've been doing. And anybody who wants to reach out to Heisa, I can definitely say it's well worth it. You will learn so much. You will be inspired and you will have better days. So thank you for making my day better today, Heisa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura, for the opportunity. I really enjoyed, and I got new insights that I can take on forever. And share with you many years from now. Like, do you remember when you said it?
And I will remember it. But as long as it has some value for you, I'm happy. All right, dear. You take care. Have a great one.
Yes, you. Thank you.